Welcome to Here's How We Get There. It's the daily show filled with conversations about business and mental health in a down-to-earth style with real-world language. Now let's dive in with your co-hosts, Kenneth Shark Kinney and Trey Tucker.
All right, Shark, big news in college sports. They're saying it is the biggest ruling from the courts that has ever been handed down to college sports. NIL has now been fully legalized. The layman's terms is that pay for play is now legal, meaning that alumni, boosters, anybody, even ancillarily connected with a college, can talk straight to a high school recruit and straight up offer him money above the table. No need to be sneaky about it like they used to. It's all now legalized. No more need to hide it. Lots of implications here. University of Tennessee was the one who actually kickstarted the whole thing by bringing a lawsuit against them, and the court sided with Tennessee and the other schools that joined in. So at this point, there literally are no rules in college football between the pay for play and no transfer restrictions. You can transfer all 4 years if you want. So it's a wild, wild west. So, Shark, you've run companies, you've hired and fired people. Solve college football and all college sports for us, please.
Yeah. So, yeah. So I don't know that I read that everything was legal. I believe the interpretation now is that there's no real action against any of them, though. There's no way to enforce these penalties, which is de facto exactly what you just said.
Right.
However, I think this is the beginning of the end of what, people have come to appreciate in college sports. If it's not, if we're not already heading in that direction, well into the first quarter of it, NIL was such a start in that it's crazy to think about. I don't remember how many years ago this was, 30 years ago, Eric Dickerson, and it almost shut down SMU. And now, if it were him today, he'd have $100 million contract at SMU.
Right.
He'd go to Alabama. But
right.
It's crazy to think and I think we saw it this year. I mean, we saw Oregon, who would have, generally never been, Washington and teams like that would have never been in the final games or are so rarely in the final games. There will never be a stronghold like there has been over the years in the SEC. You'll never see another coach like Nick Saban or Bear Bryant. I mean, even Kirby Smart will be lucky to walk out with 3 or 4 titles, just depending on how much his donors back these kids. You can effectively buy a team and there's nothing going against it, and people are going to trade for whatever works for them. I do, though, remember that a friend of mine was just telling me this week that it reminded him of not letting his son take a certain type of job while he was in college because he knew he would get handcuffed. And what worries me a lot is a lot of these kids are going to make a little bit of money. They may think they're banking 4 million, $1 million a year, and they bank, say, 4 million over 4 years. They're not going to keep that. They're going to buy their mama a house and 27 other people stuff that they don't need and spend the money foolishly and then walk out with their college education. And everything that they work for to build this NIL will effectively tear the sport down, or a lot of the sports down. It really affects college football the most, but I don't even know what this is going to do for the other programs that rely on that football money as well. How do you build these world-class programs in gymnastics and lacrosse and all these other sports that feed off of what your football team makes when it becomes such a weird sport because of NIL and how that's affecting basketball and football in particular? Also, how does this affect upwards with the pros? Well, that's going to change the pros. Effectively, basically has in baseball, but not the same way that football and basketball will with the changes. What do you think?
Yeah, all that what you said I agree with. And also it's going to start moving toward high school because NIL has already moved into high school. But now I think within a matter of months, maybe a year tops, there'll be enough lawsuits to go ahead and legalize paying high schoolers to switch schools. They'll get rid of the transfer rules in high school as well. So I think from a character development standpoint at that high school level, I'm definitely concerned because, usually a college athlete is at least legally an adult and they can make their own decisions. But man, if these high school parents start getting the sniff of the ego and the exposure that they can get through their kid living vicariously through them, ooh, this could be some bad stuff. I'm thinking with my therapist hat on here for a second. But from that business standpoint, yeah, the pros, some of these really elite guys are actually staying in college this year in football because of these reported contracts. There's reports that Georgia's quarterback is getting multi-millions to stay at Georgia instead of going into the draft. So it really has become minor league football now, just without the names. But even the even the sports that don't make money, take wrestling, for example. I was talking to a wrestling coach recently. He says, yeah, it doesn't matter that the sport loses money. If you have alumni who care enough about your sport, they're going to be paying recruits for you. But then that also cranks up the job pressure on these guys that used to be, they could hang on to their job for 5 or 10 years and not have a whole lot of pressure on them. But now that these alumni feel the freedom to throw their money around even more, that's just going to put them on the hot seat even more.
Not nearly enough people understand the value of loyalty and what that means to a program. It's all about the dollar, and it's destroying the things that we came to love about it. And I mean, there's going to be a ton of these folks that don't make it to the pros, that don't make enough money through NIL as well. Why are you ever going to want to hire them? Because again, those people are going to be there. That mentality is the same thing we see in the job place with young people today. And it's really hurting the idea of being part of a team. So we've got to figure out a way to beat it.
Thank you for joining Shark and Trey on the Here's How We Get There show. Make sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and visit here'showwegetthere.com. That's here'showwegetthere.com.